Hi, it's me, Brooks. Welcome to Heal This. And this is the third part of a series of I Am an Ex-Mormon. And I am here with Tammy Cooley. And we are hoping to start kind of where we left off last time. And so we kind of want to start talking about the part where we met our future spouses at the time and how we ended up in Alaska so that our paths would cross. So, do you want to start?
I was just gonna say, do you want to start? Because I think you were technically in Alaska before me,
Oh,
but
yeah. Okay.
I don't,
And
it doesn't matter.
no, yeah. And you lived somewhere else before Juno too. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
we lived in Colorado.
Yeah. Oh, true. Okay. So, yeah. So I ended up going to BYU, Hawaii, and after I graduated high school, and that was really something that was never on my radar at all growing up in a really small town. And then, I hadn't hardly ever even been on a plane. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to live in Hawaii and go to this all Mormon school. Um, and I'd never even been to Hawaii. So the whole thing was just quite an adventure. And of course, now looking back, I think, man, I had no idea what I was doing. I really had no idea. So big
We do that when
adventure.
we're young.
Yes. Yeah. And I look back and I think I wasn't scared at all. I was like just so excited for something new, but it's kind of my personality. So now understanding that
Totally
about
your personality.
understanding that now, of course. Yeah. So, and I remember, especially that summer after high school, I wasn't really a drinker or a smoker or like did any drugs, had never done any drugs in my life. And, that summer was just like everybody was doing something. And I just was like, oh my gosh, I can't do any of this stuff. Not that I really wanted to, but it just all of a sudden was kind of in my face with everyone kind of going off and doing their own thing. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I get on this humongous plane. I was in the middle seat of like it was like 5 and 2, and I was like in the
Uh-huh.
very middle seat on the middle in the back, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm flying over an ocean to a little island. Like it was just such a big deal for me. And then to get there and to basically know one person that I knew was going to be there, and which was nice because I had no transportation. So, making my way out to the North Shore of Oahu to start this new life and move into a dorm. And, times before cell phones, I didn't even have a computer or a laptop or any way of communicating with my family unless I could get to a phone, and then they would just happen to be at home and answer the phone, right? So it's like there's so many little
For those of you watching, there used to be these things that were plugged into a wall, and people actually had to be there to answer. Anyway,
Yes. Yeah, no, it's so true. Oh man, so many stories about that, because the time change
yeah.
and all of that. And so go there and of course, I'm going there to get my MRS degree. That's what everyone kept saying. And at first, I had no idea what that even meant. I'm like, what does that even mean? Well, you go to college as a Mormon young woman to get married. That was what I was told. And I'm kind of like, I don't understand. Like, what? I'm going to get educated. But, within weeks of getting there, people were already engaged. And I think I mentioned that before in another episode, but it was just kind of like, I don't even know anyone here and y'all are engaged. Like, that's crazy to me. And so, but it was just really something that was so how would you say it? Like just so heavily influenced all the time that you
Yeah.
graduate high school, young men go on a mission, young women get married. Like that's what happens. Um yeah. So within.
It is a ritual,
Yes.
you know.
It,
I
yeah.
mean, had it a little bit differently because I didn't go away to college.
Hmm.
So on the flip side of that, right, growing up in Utah and watching people go to college and the young men going off to their missions right after, um, it was a little bit surreal. It's like everybody's kind of going to do their things, and I had friends who were waiting for their missionaries who would
Yep.
write the letters and send the care packages and do those things. And a year in, 6 months in, they're just like, I can't do this anymore because the pressure of missionaries that have already returned are home, and you know
Hmm.
you're a young woman of a certain age, and you're you know
Yeah.
available to date somewhat, right? Although you've already been betrothed. So some of that worked and some of it didn't. And I mean, it's not unlike a lot of things that happen in other cultures and other places today, but it's just such a dynamic
Right.
of,
It's
preparing to be married before you're 21 years old.
oh right. Yes. It's a constant undercurrent always there when you're a young person, that it's like that's just what you do. It's always talked about at church, from the pulpit, all your leaders, all that kind of stuff. And there's even a quote, I think, from Brigham Young that says that if young men are not married by the time they're 26, that they're a menace to society. Um,
Mm,
and so,
which, I mean, it could be true. I mean, I think it could be true. But also, I as you're talking and we're kind of, setting the stage for what this looks and it felt like to us.
mhm,
I just want to say that, there's a lot of people I that I know. I mean, I have family members, we both know a lot of people in the church, still in the church, good people.
yes,
So I don't at all want to come off like this is, any type of hate or putting down
nope,
or anything like that. This is our experience.
mhm,
And I think I'll speak for myself and you can speak for yourself, but I feel like my situation in the church was so heavily influenced by the fact that as a young person, I was navigating it alone. I didn't have the nuclear family at home,
mhm,
setting the Mormon example for me, right?
mhm,
And so what I was interpreting and what I was taking in was through a
right,
very narrow lens of a very naive young woman.
yes,
And, I didn't have my parents sitting back saying, hey, I know, you just heard this message. You don't have to get married before you're 21.
right,
I did have people saying you don't have to do that. You have choices. But it wasn't necessarily in the way of let me help you interpret what you're hearing or seeing or feeling about the things that you're experiencing through going to church.
right,
And between what I was hearing at home from family members and what I was seeing and hearing from church members at church, very different ideologies, very different feel.
oh yeah, which brings up a whole other thing, of course. Yes,
It's just hard to navigate. So I want to be sure that at least I say, right, like I love everybody.
yeah,
This journey and this decision for me, I feel like is just really highly influenced by so many different factors, and it
for sure.
wasn't because I came from I was born into it, but was raised by a single mom. I didn't have my dad in my life in a positive way.
Right.
And so the messages for me were very, very mixed.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I'm glad you said all that. And of course, I started this whole thing because I'm podcasting and I'm telling you things about my life and how I got here. And this is a huge part of my life. 20 something years of my life was dedicated to the Mormon church. And I chose this. Of course, I chose it at a time when, my brain was not all the way formed and I just did not have all of the information. But there's so much of it that I am so grateful for. And of course, I would never go back and change the fact that I have four amazing children. I love that part of my life and have made amazing friends, lifelong friends that I will always cherish. And so, yes, coming from a really good place, it is also my story and your story. And
Hmm.
don't want to attack anyone at all. I'm trying to do that in a really kind and delicate way. But in the same boat as you, I mean, no one in my family was members of the church. They all did all the things that we weren't supposed to do,
Supposed to
right?
do.
Yeah, and so I remember going to church and even like things like family home evening, which is something, that is extremely highly recommended that we do every Monday night. So, we have church on Sunday, which is at least 3 hours if not longer with other meetings. And then Monday nights we dedicate to our family, no one else. We're just supposed to, but in college you have little family home evening groups, and then Wednesday night we meet, right? And there's always some kind of thing on Friday or Saturday too. So it's like it was our whole life. But I would be at a meeting and everyone's singing a song about how families are together forever, and how, just all these songs or lessons. And I'm looking around going, am I the only one here that doesn't have a family that's members of the church? And so the only way for me to have all of these promises and blessings is to then create my own nuclear family of, I'm the wife and the mom, and then I create that legacy afterwards. And so
Hmm.
it puts a lot of pressure on you as a human to meet these expectations. And when you have these expectations, then you are constantly going to fall short and disappoint and feel bad. And so that's kind of where um, I found myself some of that time. And so, but really wanting, and like I said in past episodes, I wanted to have a family. I wanted to be married. I wanted to have children. And this kind of fit that mold, me falling into all the things that I was really looking for. Of course, not knowing the backstory, not understanding how other people were operating or things that had happened, that maybe I'm really not in support of now. So, um, probably within the second semester of being at BYU, I met someone who I thought, okay, this is a possible match, and checked all the boxes of the things that especially a young Mormon woman looks for. Return missionary, good family, wants the same things that I do, I think, so kind of going in that direction. Um, and so we dated for about a year, but we weren't actually in the same state for that amount of time. It was kind of like we dated and then um, he was in a different state, going to a different college or going back home, and from Alaska. So it's like, oh, okay. I've never been to Alaska, like, and within, for sure, it was about over a year that we dated, and which is a really long time. That's a really long time for Mormon
Hmm.
young people. Anyway, we got married in the temple, and that was in it. in and of itself a really strange thing for me. Um, going through the temple is so hyped up, like, oh my gosh, you're going to go through the temple. And, I just was like, this is weird and this is super strange. And,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to do the right things, and I want to be pleasing to others, and be obedient, right? Like that's a theme for me.
Right.
So did all those things. My family's not able to attend. My family's not able to be there, So there's that sadness there that they're not there. And the whole thing, the whole ritual, the whole thing is just, I don't get it really. So, and as super spiritual and obedient and deep diving in to reading and understanding, I didn't really understand it, and I just don't get it, and I don't think it's a thing, but that's me. And so but I did, and I kept all those commandments and all of those covenants and everything that you're supposed to. And so then I've signed up to live in Alaska at that point, um, to move to Alaska, and I just had no idea what I was in for. But again, I have that adventure spirit, and like, let's just go, and
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be great and exciting. And we land in Juno December 30th, you know, 1996. And it's like 3 in the afternoon and it's dark. And it's just like, I just remember getting off the plane and being like, where'd we go? What happened? Like, did we go?
You
Are
went
we,
to another planet.
did we go back in time somehow? Like, what happened? Why is it all dark? And okay, I knew it was going to be cold. I didn't own a coat. Like, I just didn't even have a jacket. I had gone from California to Hawaii and did not own a coat at all. And now we're in Alaska, and I'm like, what happened? So, yeah. So, I mean, think of all of the changes that I was, you know, going through from the time I
Mm-hmm.
was 15, 16 to now 20 years old. Um, you know, Now I live in Alaska. I've never even been there.
And now you're married.
And I'm married, and I mean, it's just really not what I thought it was going to be either, by the way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but this is a really funny part. We're on the plane. This is the first time I'm going to Alaska. I actually went to meet his family in July, so before we got married, because I had not met everyone. And so we fly up there. I fly up there by myself from Hawaii, and we're on this plane. All these people, everyone's so excited because they're going to Alaska, and it's a very beautiful, amazing, magical place. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's a glacier. And I'm like, what's a glacier? Like, I just didn't even know. I had never heard of any of this, really. I mean, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't even know where Alaska was on the map. So bad. But
Didn't you take any geography?
I
Like,
know, but I swear the maps were from like 1950, and we weren't on our phones, we weren't googling, we did not have computers at all. I mean, yes, we wrote a
right.
paper every once in a while. I still think I wrote most of my papers typing them paper, and like just
Mm-hmm.
like it wasn't like on the
Electric
typewriter.
typewriter.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, but if you think about the old maps, right, it's like United States, so the 48 states, and then Alaska is always like some weird spot in a square,
Oh,
it's
way
not really.
away.
Yeah, it's like go here, and then Hawaii is like just like a dot out in the middle of no, like we don't really have it accurately, right, displayed on a flat map. And so I really didn't know. And then it wasn't until I was kind of going there that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm off in the middle of nowhere. And so, yeah, so I'm there by myself. And it was just, it really was a time where I was alone, really alone,
Mm.
trying to figure out what I had done with all of these choices I had made. And they were not producing the results that I thought they were going to produce. So, yeah. So,
I think we get into that frame of mind, right? Like we're doing these things, we're checking, like you said, checking the boxes and expecting a return on this investment that we're
that's
putting
a good way
in,
to put
and
it. Yeah.
really have no idea what it's all about.
Right.
Um, so you got there in '96. I didn't
Hmm.
get there until 2003.
Okay.
So
Oh, yeah. That makes
our
sense.
right.
Yeah.
So the and by the way, like Alaska, just for me, there's so many things that when I sit back and I think about my life and I'm like, yeah, I really lived in Alaska for almost 7 years. How'd I do that? It right, like it just seems so far away and distant and not
Mm.
something that was ever on
No.
my to do. Like it wasn't even in my frame of
No.
I couldn't have imagined it. But I didn't go to college at that time of my life. I graduated high school. At the time, I was doing cosmetology, and
Hmm.
so I had gone to beauty school in high school. I started cosmetology when I was 16. So my sophomore through senior year, I split my day. I went to high school in the morning and I went to cosmetology in the afternoon. So I graduated both of those within a week of each other. And it was my goal to get my cosmetology license, get a job, and put myself through college. That was the reason the financial reason that I made that choice. But by the time I was done doing that much school for that long, all I could think about was just having a break. I just
Hmm.
didn't want to jump right into college. That and all my friends who went from graduating high school immediately went to college, they were all complaining about how they were poor college students and, so limited in what they could do. And I mean, I had a job and, 6 months in, I was already managing a salon and had a staff of people. I didn't know what I was doing. They should have never given me that responsibility, but they did. And if you're watching this and you were part of that, I'm sorry, I've grown. But anyway,
So funny.
uh, you know, 6 months into that, I was just like living my life, having money, living in an apartment on my own, have a car. Like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need to go to school.
Right.
So I start living my life. And um, I had a pretty good run, I would say. um, but as you do, you're out in the world and you're working, and um, I was in a little bit of a different category at that point. I wasn't active in the church then.
Hmm.
I had left when I was 16 and I hadn't gone back. And I met a man, got married, got divorced,
Hmm.
um, and then in the midst of that, um, another one of my best friends and we actually moved in together. She was going through a divorce at the same time that I was, and we moved in together to help each other out, and it was such a huge blessing in my life. But it was short term and temporary.
Hmm.
I ended up having to move back home, and just try to get myself together. I had to file bankruptcy. There was just a lot that happened with that divorce and that time of my life. And the thing that was steady was my job. That was the thing that was steady and kept me going. And I remember just kind of diving into work. I'd be the first one there and the last one to leave. And then I met my second husband, and we started dating. Neither one of us were active in the church when we started. When we started dating, though, he told me his conversion story and how he met Mormon missionaries when he was living in Washington, and what that experience was like. And he was married to someone else at the time, and they had moved to Utah. And when they moved to Utah, ironically, his then wife decided they didn't want to be part of the church anymore. And so he's telling me this story, and we had had a couple of dates, and I didn't have any idea, but I remember feeling at the time like, oh wow, this guy, he's so sweet and genuine, and telling me all of these things. And I'm over here like, oh, this is meant to be, because we just connected on that level. Him coming back to the church and me coming back to the church, and kind of finding each other, and doing this thing. And even though we'd both been married before. He had 2 kids. I didn't have any kids from my previous marriage. Our thing was a whirlwind. We were engaged within 3 months of knowing each other. So we met in January. We were married in June of 1998. And at that time, we were just kind of doing our thing. I had a job. He had a job. And then we sat down to have the whole, I think I want to have children of my own, because like I said, he had 2 kids. So in his mind, in order to do that, he was going to need to make more money so that I could stay home. And he had a job opportunity that came up in Colorado. So we moved from Utah to Colorado, bought our first house, did our thing. And then he came home one day and said, what do you think about moving to King Salmon? And I remember having this complete blank stare. He's like, where do you think that is? And I just looked at him, and I could feel all of the blood rushing out of my body. And I said, are you kidding me? That sounds like Alaska. And he's so excited. He's like, yeah, I found a job there. And I'm just standing there. I'm looking around my house. I'm looking at my kids. I'm looking at this life that we just, now we're going to pack up and move to the friggin' wilderness. And what am I supposed to do there? I'm a city girl through and through. I do not want to do that. I cannot emphasize enough how much I did not want to do that. And then I took a deep breath and went, okay, well, this is what my husband wants to do. And, now I'm a stay-at-home mom, and he's the breadwinner. And if he can make more money there, that's better right? I just go through the whole thing.
Right.
And, while we're in Colorado, before we have this big epiphany that we're going to move to the wilderness, we'd been going to church, and we, decided at that point we have kids. Now, I went from no kids to 4 kids in the span of 2 years. That's a whole nother story.
Right.
But really,
yeah.
But it's important to this part of it for me, because a couple of things for me in life. I was never going to have kids. I was not going to get married. I was going to go live in the big city. I had all these wild, crazy plans. And none of that happened. It was the exact opposite. And when I found myself in that situation, because I truly feel like at that point in time, I was 20, 24, 25 years old. You know, I'd already been divorced. I'd already had all of this life experience to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the evolution of marrying someone with kids and having this instant family, I wanted to be the best wife and mom that I could be. And in my mind, the way to do that was to have this structure that I
Mm-hmm.
knew.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same for him, right? He was like, I never really wanted to leave. That was, my ex-wife's decision, kind of a thing. So we came together in the understanding that we would raise our family in the church.
Mm-hmm.
And moving to Colorado just kind of sealed the deal. we ended up going to the temple and doing all of that, and having, our family sealed together. And hey, it was interesting. And I'll say, like you, you're never prepared enough for what you do in those rituals in the temple, because you're not supposed to talk about it. It's this very sacred thing that you can't talk about. So I didn't feel like I could ask any questions, and nobody was, they
Right.
were just saying, don't worry, we're going to take care of you. We'll be there for you. We'll go and we'll do this together.
Right.
And I did feel like that, but also, like you, I had family members. My mom was there, but she couldn't be in the temple.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got people waiting for you on the outside,
Right.
when you go through and do the thing. And then on the inside, I had people who were very close to me. And, it even now, like, I could get really emotional about it. It's very bittersweet to think about the things that you're promising and the things that you're saying you're going to do, that you want to do because you want what's best for yourself and your family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, long story longer, we we do that. We're in Colorado, and then I'm hit with, want to move to Alaska. No, I don't, but thank you very much. We packed up our whole we packed up our whole life
Yep.
into a shipping container.
Yep.
And if you've never done a transcontinental move, I'm your girl. I can help you out.
Me too.
I've done it
Yeah.
twice now, right?
Yeah,
Like,
you have. Yes, you have.
oh yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we were told that it would be 3 weeks before we would have our things. So to be prepared,
Mm-hmm.
um, we packed everything that we could up. We sold some things. We put some things in storage, and then we packed our minivan. Yes, I had a minivan. We packed our minivan and drove from Colorado Springs to Bellingham, Washington,
Mm-hmm.
and then made our way up. We actually, when we moved there, because we were taking our van, we had to drive it as far as we could drive it. So we drove it to Anchorage. And then they put it on a plane in Anchorage and flew it down to King Salmon.
That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And there was a whole lot of, talk about feeling like you're alone. Like, we had packed up our kids and our belonging, like, as much as we could in this van. We were going to live for the next 3 weeks. I didn't know anything about it. I'm like, these are my kids. Well, we had to cross the border at Canada, and they're very serious about documentation. And they're like, well, how are you going to prove these are your kids? And I just remember sitting there frozen, like, what? Like, all of our documentation is in a
Oh my gosh.
container being shipped to King Salmon
Oh my
because nobody
gosh.
told me I was going to have to do this.
Right, right, right.
So
And
we
what
sat at the
year is
Canadian
this?
border.
What year is this?
Um, so that was 2002, April of 2002.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's that's uh
And
that's a big year too. 9/11
yes.
that year.
hmm So
So,
we did 9/11 in Colorado. I have I that I mean, for a lot of us, right? Like, that day is just cemented in our
mhm.
brains, but I remember thinking, wow. So now we've had 9/11, and the border is much
Right.
more secure. They're very, very serious. How are you going to prove these are your kids? We stayed there for what felt like an eternity. They finally let us go. I'm like, if they turn us away and we've driven already like
Right.
2,000 miles, what are
Right.
we going to do?
All right. Right.
Yeah, it was insane. So they finally let us through. We get to Anchorage, take the van where it needs to go so that it can be transported. But when I tell you, you're gonna have to look at, now, if you had a real map of Alaska, not that flat map you were talking about from 5th grade, the real map of Alaska,
I mean, I
we're
was a
on
senior in
the.
high school and we were still
I'm.
using that map. Okay.
I No shade to your high school. You graduated, you're good. Um, it was rough back then, though, guys. Like,
Yeah.
uh, so Alaska, we should probably pull it up, but
Yeah.
it's got the big thing in the center and then two things that come down like this.
Yes.
And originally, so this is how I know you and I were divinely constructed by the universe to meet, because I was way over here and
Right.
you were way over here. Like, we
Yes.
were 1,000+ miles apart.
Yes.
So we land in King Salmon, and they have a Coast Guard station in King Salmon at the airport, which is
Why does that?
which is I was like, there was a thumbs up
I
on
don't
the
know why it
screen.
does that. Every time I drink water, it's so
That's
happy
funny.
for me. So,
Oh, well, yay. Stay hydrated.
like,
Um we get there, and again, you're only as prepared as you can be to move someplace you've never been. And we could see these beautiful pictures on the internet, and all the thing,
right.
right? Like, the internet just makes it look like this magical place, and it is. Don't get me wrong, it
Right.
is magical.
For about 3 months in
But
the
you have
summer.
to be in the not even that. You have to be in the right
Right.
frame. You have to be in the right frame of mind. And the
Right.
frame of mind that I was in was not what I was prepared to be met with.
That's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
So, because I didn't have any idea what it was going to look or feel like or even sound like to move to a place that is called the bush. Like, when
Yeah.
those words right, like, oh, you're
Yeah.
moving to the bush, and I'm like, but this isn't Australia. Like,
Well,
the
yeah. Where are we going?
oh
I don't understand. Yeah.
but
No, it
the
is.
reason that
It's out there.
it is it's so from remote and far, and you
Yep.
can't just get in your car and drive to another place.
Nope.
And so, like, you're literally dumped there. There you are, with the bears and the moose and all the scary things that you don't know how
Right.
to deal with.
And the weather and the elements.
And the weather, that's a whole nother thing. And the
Right.
water and the whole, I mean, I could spend days talking about
Yep. And we
this, just
probably will.
this,
Yeah.
how we got there, but
And you're
we
like, so
didn't.
magical. This is so
It's
magical.
So magical. We get there, it's like after 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night, and it's a little two terminal airport. And luckily, because of the research that we were doing, we had met people virtually that knew we were coming. And the reason why this was so good for us is because, one, they were church members.
Sure.
And
I
so,
figured.
right, like you just feel like you have this instant family when
Yes.
you
You're in the
get to
group.
where
You
you're going.
know, we got each other. Yeah.
You're in.
That's
You're
right.
in. At least you got that.
Are you a member? I'm a
And
member.
luckily,
We're members, so we got it.
we see you. But luckily, literally, I, again, didn't know what I was getting myself into. There's no convenience stores. There's nothing convenient about being dropped in the middle of the bush. I don't know how else to say that.
No. The shipment comes in, it's gone. That's it. People make a run for it. They buy it. It's the apocalypse. Yes. Every day.
But I'm bringing children.
Right.
I'm bringing toddlers.
Right.
To the bush. And I was not prepared. We had gotten on the plane in Anchorage and flown to King Salmon, and we had our luggage, right? Like what we took out of the van that we could put on the plane. And that is what we had for the next 3 weeks while we're waiting for our household to be delivered.
Oh my gosh.
Somebody's hungry, but we can't go to 7-Eleven or where that doesn't exist. So luckily for us, they knew we wouldn't know, and they showed up at the airport with dinner and breakfast and a gallon of milk and
probably diapers. You needed all that stuff, I'm sure.
It was so touching to me, like the level of thought that went into, we know you're not prepared for what you just came to.
Yeah.
And there was no preparation that could have happened for me to prepare me for that. It's like, here you are, good luck.
And you're looking at your husband going, what a great idea. This is a great idea.
This is awesome. Well, and then we get to the townhouse that we rented, right? It has, I can't say no furniture, because they were going to furnish it for us until our stuff came.
Yeah.
So we had some mattresses, and downstairs in the living room, there was an outdoor table and those folding chairs.
Yeah.
That,
so you can sit down.
But they were the folding ones from the 80s with the weave.
Yeah.
Like
yes, I want one of those now. So bad.
I know. I want one of them now too. But so we're sitting, like, this is the most remote camping I've ever done in my life. And I have to give my toddlers a bath and put them to bed.
Yeah.
And we're talking about, my daughter just turned 2, and my son is going to just turn 3 in another month.
Right.
So I had 2 2-year-olds. And I go upstairs to turn the water on for the bath, and it comes out, and it looked like gasoline. Like, it just was this. And I'm like, this can't be right. This can't. And so I'm running around, and I'm turning on all the water everywhere. Like, why does the water look like this? So, I'm like,
I'm feeling a meltdown coming on.
I'm just crying at this point. I'm crying.
Yeah.
Like, what have I done? Where are we? Like, right. So anyway, that was my arrival to Alaska. And the reason that I say all of this is because a year later, when he decided to move to Juno and take a job there, I was like, oh, hallelujah. Yeah. At least we're going to be in a city.
I know.
Right? Like, And I think, again, it's one of those things where the universe is like, let me just give you the worst possible case scenario
Right.
so you
It's
can
so
be
true. I
really
remember.
grateful
Yeah.
for the things. Because
Yeah.
if he had just put me, if
Yes.
we had just arrived in Juno, I would have absolutely hated it. I would have been
Yes.
miserable. But I got there and oh my gosh, it was like paradise.
I,
And I was so happy to
yeah.
have stores and
Right.
normal gas stations and things and other people, more people.
Yes.
So that fueled me from being in that such a remote place to
I think
then
that's
going to Juno.
amazing. Yeah. I think it's
Yeah,
fantastic the way that worked out, though. Like,
I do
that's
too,
awesome.
actually. I mean, I trade the experience? No, because there's some funny and just,
Yes.
really, like, maybe someday I'll write a book, but
Well,
it's
we
like, you just
definitely
take
have to
this
talk about it, but yes. It's
just take this naive girl from the city, so sheltered in Utah, like that you're just used to life
yes.
one way, and you give her the complete opposite of everything that
Yes.
is. And it gave me such a different perspective. Even now
Mhm.
I think so differently.
Me too.
And I'm really grateful, because
Super grateful. Yeah.
I don't think I would have arrived at some of the conclusions had I not been to had to, live like the pioneer woman out on the tundra.
Absolutely. Definitely, you know, the chosen frozen, the frozen chosen, like you
Yes.
you learn some things, let me tell you, day in day out. And
Mhm.
I definitely was not prepared for Alaska at all. Like I just
Yeah.
wasn't. But I think the biggest thing for me was the weather is so different. I was California girl and Hawaii and sun, and yeah, it was warm. It was, and I was extremely isolated. I grew up in a state where you could drive from top to bottom and it would take days. And now there was 30 miles of road and you could not get out, and you got to get on a plane or a boat or a ferry, and then there were just not very many options of anything. It was just, and yes, so many more options than king salmon, thank goodness. And but uh it really was hard, and especially at that time, like the longer that I lived there, I was there about 15 years, but
Mhm.
as when we very first got back, and this is totally normal to them, right? I mean, he's lived there pretty much his whole life, but
Mhm.
you everybody shops at basically the same store. I mean, there's a couple of stores, but the most general store, everybody's there. So
Right.
and there's like 28,000 people. Sometimes that fluctuates a little more, a little less, but pretty much know the most people at by face after several years because of school, work, gym, store, post office. Like you just bank, whatever, you run into the same people all the time. And
Mhm.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a whole other way of living. And um, you learn to have really good gear. You have to have good shoes and you got to stay warm and dry. And that's year round. Summer
It is
was,
year round. I
yeah,
didn't have a pair of sandals for the whole
nope.
time that I
That was
lived
like
there. Like,
vacation wear, like, whoa, we gotta, and most of the time you had to buy it when you were there because they wouldn't have it. Like if you wanted to get a
right?
swimsuit or if you wanted to get flip flops or whatever, they wouldn't have it because there was no reason to wear it. So yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
I was just thinking about
No,
that, but
it's so seasonal. And I think there's a lot of stuff, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that I've probably blocked out. A little side note. This is another weird but
yeah,
awesome thing that happened. So when we moved to Juno, um for us at this time, it was a ferry ride. So we went to, like, where did we get on the ferry? We took our van and drove. So the van is flown up again to Anchorage out of King Salmon, and we drove down down through Valdez and all. I mean, it was gorgeous. It was absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful. But you're in the
Right.
middle of
Yeah.
the most wild wilderness you've ever seen in your life. And there's not a gas station, there's not a rest
Right.
stop, there's not help out there if something happens, and you have your family, right? You have your babies. And I just remember being this bundle of nerves the whole time just driving down. We had to drive down to Haines and catch the ferry from Haines into Juno. And when we got there, we again, we'd rented a house, and all the, but it's so green, and like I had never seen
Yes.
anything like it. I felt like we had just arrived in Fern Gully.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the fairies and all the
Yeah.
things to pop out, and
Yeah.
I can still smell it. It
What time
just
of
was
year was it?
so
Do you remember?
yeah, it was April.
Yeah.
So
So
I
it's
mean, it was springtime.
just about to get super gorgeous.
Yeah, and it just, oh, I was like, wow, because I grew up in Utah. It was a desert, really brown,
Right.
warm and
Yes.
sunny, and
So brown.
you had, manicured lawns in the suburbs, but not around.
Right.
And I remember like calling to get the house that we were renting, and I'm like, oh, so do you have like automatic sprinklers? And she literally laughed out loud.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
She's like, you don't need that
No.
here.
No.
And I'm like, wait, what? What? Why? And she's like, you live in Alaska. It rains just about every day. You're not going to need to water your lawn. It just does it. It just
Yeah.
grows. You're just going to have to mow it, kind of thing. And, it was just such a foreign concept.
It
Didn't have
is.
any idea. But anyway, getting there. So we get there,
Yeah,
and we've
I
been
want to
there for a
say
little.
that they said it rains 300 days of the year in Southeast Alaska. The 65
Mhm.
other days that it's not raining does not mean it's sunny. It just
Right.
means there's not high precipitation.
Not.
So, yeah, it could be not raining during the middle of winter when it's dark and
It
low.
could be snowing.
It could be, but it rains a lot. A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
So
sorry.
definitely not prepared. Definitely not prepared for the amount of rain of
Yeah.
Southeast Alaska. It was very different in King Salmon. A lot of precipitation, a lot of gray, days, but not quite as much rain as on the southeast side. But after being there for a little while, and like you said, it's a smaller city. You kind of get to know people. You're going to the same places.
Yeah.
2 people from my graduating high school class lived in Juneau at the same time as me.
That's weird.
And right, like it was just this really random,
I had no
weird.
idea
Hi,
about
Brian.
that.
Hi, Melanie, if you're watching this. But anyway, yeah, 2 different people from
That's
my
so
high
crazy.
school graduating class were there at the same time.
Wow.
And yeah, we were all there for totally different reasons. But kind of a cool, like, okay, we're just going to meet randomly in the most remote place you can
Yeah.
think of right now.
That's
Why
crazy.
are 3 kids from Utah and Juneau at the same time?
Yeah.
But kind of cool. So being there, right? We were going to church, and this is how you and I meet.
Yep. That's what I was gonna say.
You've been there you've been there a long time, and I'm like this newbie, like, what the hell? Is it going to literally rain every day? I can't even go outside. I remember somebody saying, I'm like, oh, how do you guys go outside?
Yeah, you don't.
Because for me, right, like, but for me, growing up in the desert, if it's a rain, you sit inside and it's cozy and you have all
Right.
these things. that gets really old. You can't just sit inside all day every day because it's raining.
Yeah, that's why you have to have really good gear because you gotta go outside, but you otherwise you'll just be wet all the time and cold. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
I never really got into that whole like I just I didn't want to hike. I didn't want to hike a wet, slick, muddy path. I didn't want
yeah,
to, I mean, I would. I'd go into
mhm,
the,
right.
where's that little place by the school? We'd go walk this little trail that
Oh
was over
yeah,
by my house,
and it's
um,
so
and up
pretty.
to the glacier and back, that
Yep,
kind of thing. But I never really,
loved
it
it.
just was such a hard thing. And well, it was just so hard for me to be outside in the rain. I
Yeah,
just wasn't, I wasn't bred that way. You can put
and
all the
it's
rain gear on me you want. It's
it's
still out in the rain.
yeah, and it's just so gray, so it's like those days when everyone's seen it on pictures or in videos or whatever when it's sunny like that. That's at the end of May, beginning of June, when it's the peak season of sunshine and everything is turned green and it's because of all of the rain, you know.
Yeah. And you're
Um
lucky enough to get 2 or 3 days of sunshine in a row.
in a row. Yeah. So now we're at this point where I have two kids, you have two kids, we have I yours are a tiny bit younger than mine, but it's like I have a 2 and a 4 and you have a 3 and a 3 and 4. I just remember being like, "Whoa." So anyway, and we are like full force in Mormon mode. Like I am serving all the time. I mean, I am teaching these babies and I'm loving it. I love being a mom. I love having these little babies and it is a lot of work. I mean, it is a lot of work. But I'm a stay-at-home mom and I don't really see my husband very much and I'm raising these babies and I am taking them to church all the time at the church. Moms groups and out hiking and on my back and backpacks and all this stuff, like just going for it,
Mhm.
so many amazing stories of taking 2 and 3 little babies on hikes and in the snow and just going for it. But when I got pregnant with my third baby, and I do have to say that every time I got pregnant, it was a disaster. Like for me physically, I would just, from the moment I conceived, I was basically throwing up my whole entire life. Like I could not throw up. It was like I couldn't keep anything down. I was just so sick all the time. And I still
Mhm.
signed up for it again and again. And it was really, really, really difficult. And so with third baby, it was worse. I mean, it was like the worst time for me being pregnant. I just basically every 30 minutes would throw up. I could not keep anything down. And
Mhm.
um, so at that point, I'm barely, and I have so many funny stories of just trying to be anywhere and being like, I'm going to throw up. Like, I'm going to throw up. I'm going to throw up. It's just like, oh. So anyway, but I went to church and, I had these 2 little kids with me. And on this particular day, the Tammy and her family moved into our ward and they were speaking because that's pretty much custom, right? Like you move in or you're moving out and you're given a talk at church.
Mhm.
And so she gets up there and she gives this talk and I mean, I just thought she was just an angel. Like, I mean, just
Aw.
really the most amazing human. I was just so floored by her. Like, I just thought, I want to be her friend, and
You're gonna make me cry.
you've heard this story before and
I
it's
know,
true.
but for some reason today, I'm just like, oh.
But I was just really taken with her and I could not wait until after so I could go talk to her. And so I so after the meeting, get my kids where they're supposed to go, and I'm, looking for Tammy, and I basically am walking down this long hallway, and she, comes out, and there she is, and I'm like, oh my gosh, hi, and I'm like trying to walk towards her, oh, there's Tammy, hi, and she just looks at me like, and I'm like, oh, why is she looking at me like that?
It's just my face, Brooks.
Yeah, but it wasn't just your face. It was the vibe at that moment was just kind of like, you better stop right there, right there.
Like,
Don't come any closer, lady. And I'm like, oh. So anyway, I don't know if you have any input on that side.
no, I think you remember it a lot more vividly than I do. I was so like, oh, this is a new place, a new church, and all the people, and you want to fit in, but also you don't want to do it so well that immediately they're calling you to do,
Right.
some big thing, right?
You want to do it well,
Like,
but
don't
not
call.
like, yeah, so
I'm like,
good that
don't
they're
call my
like,
husband to be the bishop or something. Like I,
that is so funny.
um,
So
I'm
true,
like,
though.
can I just fly under the? Can I just? How long can I fly under the radar?
Yes.
Not very long.
No, not very long. No. So I'm super sick. Like I can't function. I have these two toddlers. And so right away, the church assigns people to come in and help me. It's kind of what they do. And they're really good at it. And so people are coming in to help with meals, and people are coming in to just help, like, watch my kids for a little bit so I can take a shower or just have a break. And one of those people, Tammy, that came in, and she's new to the area. I don't even know her. She's now volunteering to hold my hair back while I throw up. It's like super humbling, and I just felt so like I just really liked her so much, and I knew she was an amazing person, and I could see that about her, and yet she still was really, really, really pushing me away. And of course, this is way before
Mhm.
I am all into the energy, but that's what it was, is me feeling her pushing me away. And again, I haven't had anything to really eat in days and days. And I'm also a very forward person. So I'll just say it. And so I
Mhm.
said, well, kind of like, and I'm going to mess it up, I'm sure, but I'm kind of like, so what's your deal? Like, you seem so great, but then you just seem so insecure, or something's wrong, or what? Is it because of your weight?
Mhm.
Yeah. And like, and then immediately I was like, oh no, that probably wasn't the best thing to say. But she was kind of like, well, I have to go now.
This has been great. It was like in that moment. So on my side, like every moment you walk into the doctor and everything that's wrong with you is automatically because of your weight, right? No. I don't even know how to answer this question, and why are we having this conversation? Like, you don't even know me. Yeah, I gotta
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
and never talk to you again.
Yes. Which we now know is
Yeah,
not
you gotta
true.
tell that part. Because
Well,
obviously we're here and it's years, almost 20 years
20
later.
years. Yeah. So that happens, and I think about it, and I'm like, okay, I'm just not going to go away. I'm just not going to go away. I want to be your friend. I came to see you for hair first.
Okay.
That's what I remember, because you were in a different
In my
house.
kitchen.
Yeah, you were in a different house.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where I came first, because then you moved to the one across the street from the school.
From the school.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. So I'll go back a little bit. So,
But we worked it all out there.
so, and you're working, you're cutting hair, you're doing hair. And,
Hmm.
so I was like, oh, I got to get in to see her because I need to talk to her. And, she hates my guts right now. So I need to go, I need to go see her. And so I make an appointment to come see you. And, you're new, you're looking for clients. And so you're like, oh, this lady is coming to see me. Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go to see you and you tell me you're expecting. And, you had already helped me. And at that point, I was on something that would help me not throw up every day. I was basically begging for something because I'm like, I was in and out of the hospital and I'm like, I just need to not be throwing up all the time. Anyway, so it was
Yeah.
better. Now you're cutting my hair and you did a fabulous job. You didn't cut it all off or anything, which you could have. I was giving you a lot of power. And so, and
I
so,
hate her.
yeah. And so we finished that transaction. And then you say, I need to tell you that what you said, it was rude and it hurt my feelings and all of that. And of course, at that point, I'm kind of like, oh, yeah, I did say that. And of course, my intention was not to be hurtful. It was more kind of like trying to understand you.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Why are you so mean? Why won't you
but
just be my friend?
yeah, well, I'm like, I just want to be your friend. I want to understand you. And, so that was eye opening for me because I was not trying to be hurtful. I was basically making an observation that you were really pushing me away and I was trying to be your friend and I said it wrong. And so you were really brave and you said a lot of the things that I needed to hear. And so I left that situation. I did feel really bad, obviously, but I still wanted to be your friend and I was still, trying to pursue that. And so we're talking like days and weeks. It's not like the day after
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. So then I show up at your place and, we're both pregnant, and it's super early in the morning. Um, and I knocked on your door and I was like, hi, how's it going? Can I come in? And you were like, I'm in my bathrobe, and it's like 7 or something in the morning. And I'm like, I know, I don't care. Can we just talk? And so we did. I went in and we talked and we ended up talking for hours. And I think, and you need to tell a little bit of this too, but I think at that point you kind of had thought about what I had said and, um, and also, I had thought about what I had said, and so anyway.
Yeah, it. I make a joke out of it because it's there's some of it that's funny now, but in the moment, for me, growing up as a heavier person, it's always been something that's on the forefront of people's minds. And people have said very rude and condescending and off-putting things to me. And that conversation that we had, that was the first time in my entire life that I ever went back and told somebody that what they said and how they said it actually hurt me and that it wasn't okay. I'd never done that before. And it was for me, it was just a pivotal moment to kind of own who I am and how I feel. And I didn't know the groundwork that we were laying back then, but to feel, one, empowered, but also safe enough to tell you, I'm like, well, she was that blunt with me, I'm just going to be that blunt with her.
Mhm.
And the fact that we could have that conversation, and that you heard me, and that it wasn't it that I didn't, that I couldn't, it's this is something else I joke about. It's like I couldn't push you away if I tried. Like she was just going to keep coming back. And that was also new. That was new for me because I was a traumatized child,
Mhm.
and I learned to put walls up really early on in my life. And I was going to have that wall here so people can't get too close. And I'm not going to get hurt then, right? I can be the aggressor. I can be the one to say yes or no, but I'm not going to allow other people to do that. And there was just something so different about our interaction. And it would be a while later, like I didn't realize on my end all of the things I didn't, that day at church, I didn't know you were coming to say, oh, that was a great talk or what, like, I didn't at all look at it like that because I never had the assumption that people would like me. My assumption was always other people are a threat and I need to keep them as far away from me as possible.
Right.
So you having just you being you and us having that interaction, it set the stage for a lot of different things for us.
Mm-hmm.
And not just in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
but like I knew that I could trust you. I knew that I could trust you and that you would always be honest with me. And very few people like that in my life. And I don't know if it could have happened another way, honestly, because I had my preconceived notion
Right.
that, you were who you were, and I viewed that as out of my league. It's just how I saw it. And, I wouldn't have met a lot of the people that I did, and had some of the experiences that I had there if it wasn't for you. So I'm so grateful that you didn't give up. Like whatever it was that you felt about me that put it in your mind to pursue our friendship, I would have killed it. I would have never I would have never pursued it, not because of you, but because of me. And for you to say it's a place of insecurity, it was it was a place of insecurity, and I had never really looked at it like that. It was protection.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that, I could feel better about people not liking me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was all really well put. And um, I saw your soul. I saw your beautiful soul because you were so willing to be vulnerable and share with us. And so I was really put off when you didn't want to be my friend. And so I thought, well, what is
Because you
this?
have a very shiny soul too, but I didn't want to see it at the time. I didn't know how yet.
Yeah. And I thought, well, this is supposed to happen. And I think, and all I could feel was that you were pushing me away. And, I thought, well, is that because you're feeling insecure about what you look like? Right. And your
Hmm.
weight. And I just and I've told you this your whole time that I've known you is that I don't see that about you, and I don't,
Right.
that's not what I see. I see who you are to your soul and how you show up. And that's what I want in my life. And I think anyway, we were able to work all that out, obviously, and have just been closer and closer and closer because, like you said, we're both really willing to be vulnerable with each other and very honest, and not only honest, but there when we're honest. It's like I'm going to
Hmm.
say some things and I know you still love me, and you like you're going to I love you. I'm coming from a place of love and you love me, and so we're trying to be each other's sounding board and be honest and say, well, what I hear you saying is, or what I see you doing is, and kind of a thing. And then the other one has to be able to receive it in a way that's like, okay, maybe I'll look at it from that point of view because I'm in my point of view and I can't see it. So, and sometimes it takes longer than, but, we've had to work through those things but we did work through them, and we have. And I think now it's way easier. Like,
So much
so,
easier.
so much easier.
we still
Yeah.
we still once we stumble once in a while, right? But I think for the most part it, now being this long down the road,
Yeah.
you know that they're not coming at it from a place of I don't like you or I don't want you in my life or right, like there's no
Right.
threat.
Right.
It's more of I'm saying this because you need to hear it and I don't know who else can say it to you,
Right. Yeah. And
right?
we're not receiving it from a place of insecurity anymore. Like
Right?
you're trying to hurt me, or you're trying to leave, or whatever. You're saying it because you're trying to help me. And I need
Yes.
help in this moment. So yes, thank you for saying, the hard things. And so, um, but this all would not have happened. I mean, we talked about divine timing before. It happens all the time for people if they're able to take a couple steps back and look and go, wow, this is in my life for a reason. This person's in my life for a
Mhm.
reason. And I need to receive what it's trying to teach me and show me so that I can grow. And would not have I would not be here if it weren't for you and all of the things that we have worked through and talked about. And I mean, we spent hours and hours being friends with each other, and times
Mhm.
that have been extremely difficult. So when
Yeah.
someone shows you that, you know, you can't not reciprocate it. So, um, this has taken a little bit of a different turn, but it is
I know.
so much part of our story, and why we show up for each other every day, and why, for me, I have been able to make some really brave moves and take some risks, because I know that I have a friend, I have someone that gets it. And so I don't know where else to go, but this is part of our
Well,
story.
it is part of our story and I feel like it's the thing, right? Like we came together because of the place and the time and
Our belief
being
system.
in our belief system.
Right.
But the thing that has held us together through all of the changes that we've made over the last 10 years, right? Like if you just look at the last 10 years,
Yeah.
a lot has happened and a
A
lot
lot.
has changed. And a lot of times when people have a faith crisis and they are looking at everything and overturning everything in their lives, the friendships that they have and the relationships that they have are affected because now they don't think and
Right.
believe the same things that they did before. And I never had to worry about that. That was not
Yeah.
one of the things that I worried about. I
Right.
knew that we would always be friends no matter what happened. But now looking back, right? Like we are on this path and there's the energy that we attract each other with has always been present.
Absolutely.
And it's like you're one of those people for me where I know we've lived multiple lifetimes together in
Yeah.
different ways because there's no way that we could know each other as well as we do or be able to interpret each other the way that we do without having multiple experiences. It's not just the swan.
Right. Right. And it's
And
like my soul recognized your soul in that moment. And that's what it felt like
immediately,
to me. It's like, yeah,
there she is.
we're supposed to be
Yeah.
friends. Yeah. So,
And even though it took me a little bit longer, for again, my own personal reasons, has absolutely nothing to do with your delightful soul. Um, you know,
uh,
I
mhm.
just I have to say the same. Like I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be the woman that I am today if it wasn't for you. And I have very few people that I can say that about, and I feel like I'm blessed to be able to say that because the influences that the female friendships that I have are so strong and
Mm-hmm.
so long lasting and powerful. Um, I wouldn't be here without them. I wouldn't be this version of myself,
Yeah.
because in the moments when we were sitting at my house in Juno in the morning, kids are
Yeah.
gone to school and we're just talking about life and our day and whatever. Like, there were some really hard days, and
Mm-hmm.
being able to talk to you through those things gave me hope, and it gave me motivation to be able to see things differently and look at different things. And even right now, like, we're talking about my insecurity and my weight, but this is me 170 pounds lighter than I was when we had this conversation.
I know.
And you know I mean, going to the gym for the first time and putting myself out there in public, and knowing that I could do that because I had your acceptance. It gave me, when I didn't have it for myself, it was like, here, borrow a little bit of my confidence. And I did that a lot. I borrowed a lot of your confidence. And I still do it sometimes today. We'll have a conversation and I'll say, "You'll be so proud of me. I I pulled a page from Brooks's book and this is what I did." Because that's how we learn.
That's right.
We that's how we learn and how we grow. And
Yep.
even though I'm not a Mormon anymore, the reason that I get to be here with you today is because I once was.
Yeah. Yep. I am so proud of you. And you can
I'm
borrow
so proud
whatever
of
you
you
need.
too. Same.
And I
Whatever
borrow
is
from
mine
you.
is yours.
That's right. So that's how it goes. So yes, we were both Mormon at one time and we are no longer Mormon, and that's okay. It's still part of our story, and I've learned so much, and I'm so grateful for you, and I'm grateful our paths crossed, and they crossed
Me
in
too.
Juno, because Juneau, Alaska, because I needed you and you needed me, and so we don't have to look back at everything and think they were awful. I mean, there were some bad times. There were some really bad times. But
But we
the reason
made it.
we made it, and the reason why we're here and smiling and laughing and thriving, just thriving, just, oh, I want to cry. It makes me so happy. Is because it doesn't all have to be through the lens of negativity and sadness and hurt
Fear.
and pain and fear. That's right. And
Yeah.
shame and doubt and guilt and all those things. We can let go of those things and release them, and we can receive love, and we can receive joy and fulfillment and abundance. So much abundance. It's amazing. So
It's just here
it
for you.
that's right. It doesn't have to be in a box, and it doesn't have to be the boxes you check off. It can be so much more. So I think that. I know Tammy thinks that too.
I do.
So, yeah. So maybe this has been helpful for you. I'm not sure, but hopefully somewhere along the line we have, said something that you needed to hear. So, we will do it again, and we will do more, and keep on healing this, keep on healing this. Let's do it. Bye.
Bye.